give us an update. He's also going to talk to us about the real possibility that China and Russia are working together to get America and Israel to strike Iran so that we can be more weakened militarily and stretched with more than one theater of action. And then that gives Xi Jinping a chance to go after Taiwan. We are getting reports tonight. We'll talk to David about it. If you go to David's Twitter feed, you'll find out about it. I'm going to go there real quick because I'm going to be bringing that up and referencing that tonight. I guess what is the equivalent of America's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, what they have for that spot in China? Here it is. He has been let go. President Xi Jinping has arrested the Chinese equivalent to the U.S. chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff as he continues to purge to install loyalists that support his plan to blockade/invade Taiwan later this year. We'll ask David what he thinks the chances are of an invasion by China on Taiwan this spring or before the end of the year. So we'll talk about that. Then I want to talk to Leo Hohmann. He has a brand new article out tonight. No ceasefire deal comes out of Trump Putin talks, but here's what they did agree on. And then the subtitle, the positions of Moscow and Washington may gradually converge to the point where World War III can be avoided, but the danger is that time is not on our side. Let's talk about that tonight as well. And then how many of you are familiar with this map right here? This is a map that is promoting the idea of megacities in the United States. I pre-recorded an interview with Tom DeWeese today. Not everybody wants to stay up as late as I do, folks. And so I pre-recorded an interview with Tom DeWeese on megacities. And he didn't know about this. I sent it to him this morning and said, will you research this? He did. He's going to explain how it fits in with Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 of the United Nations, something we've been talking about since the early 90s after the Earth Summit in Rio in 92. And how does this fit with the federal government grabbing up land all over the United States? A lot of these gray areas, could those be areas where you're not allowed to move? You're not allowed to go into some of those areas? Is that crazy talk, or is that actually on the table? Biospheres where you actually get prosecuted if you go into those areas. Let's talk about that with Tom DeWeese. How about this next one? And that is a national ID card. How many of you know about a national ID card? Do any of you have a driver's license with the star on it right there? Well, that means you have a national ID card. Why should you cancel it and go back to your normal driver's license? Because, folks, there's a lot of lies going on out there that you're not going to be able to get on the airplane after May 7th if you don't have one of these. I think that's a lie. I also pre-recorded an interview this afternoon with Twyla Braze, first-time guest. I hope she'll come back. I wanted to interview her for a long time. Again, not everybody wants to stay up as late as I do or be in front of the camera and in business attire. So sometimes I have to do these interviews during the day. So I did that with Tom DeWeese as well as with Twyla. You're going to want to hear about this and our need to fight this because it all fits in with the coming social credit scores and so much more. And then let's talk with Dr. Lana about RFK Jr. He is pushing hard on getting rid of about 10,000 chemicals, toxins in our food, whereas only about 400 of these 10,000 are in the food in Europe. But we got apparently all 10,000 here in the U.S. There's so much to talk about with Dr. Lana about health and trying to keep ourselves from basically getting in a health situation that is terminal, if you know what I mean. We have to be careful the words we use here, or we might get in trouble with the government if we actually say what we really are trying to say. So read between the lines. You don't want to get terminal, do you? But how do you avoid getting terminal when you have so many toxins in the food? Let's talk about what RFK Jr. is doing in a recent video he just released about that. Now, before we start, because we got to get moving tonight, folks, remember we do these long format interviews, and we don't want to have to stop and take breaks every 10 minutes for 5 minutes selling Jeeps and pickup trucks and cruises and soap. But we can do it because, you know what? We actually had a company today call us or contact us that wants to do that. They want to program in with us, and we go to breaks regularly and sell pickup trucks and Jeeps. And by the way, it pays really well, but I don't want to do that. I like the format we have, but if we're going to keep this format, We're going to have more of you supporting us. Okay? Please consider doing that now. Worldviewfoundation.com. There are a lot of you watching and listening that can support us financially. You can afford it, but you're not. So we're going to either have to see a drastic increase in donations, or we're going to have to take our programming that's been available for 7 days to the public and cut that down to 3 days. You'll be able to watch anything we do on the 24/7 stream, and then everything we do will be available to the public for 3 days. And then we might have to cut it down to 2 days, and then 1 day. And then maybe all of our shows, if you don't catch them live, you don't get to see any of them unless you're watching the live stream. I don't want to do any of those measures, but there's no reason with the size of this audience, we shouldn't be raising enough money. There's no reason other than there's a lot of you watching that can support us financially, but you're choosing not to. So all I can tell you is I watch a bunch of loser, neo-evangelical organizations, losers, raising millions and millions a year. And they don't say what we say. They don't do what we do. They don't stand for what we stand for. They're disgusting organizations raising millions of dollars. Now, I don't know if they're really raising that money or if they're getting government money or funding from foreign enemies or what. But you look at their reports and they're raising millions. I'm like, how on earth are they doing that? They're not cranking out the TV shows, the articles we are, interviewing the people, staying cutting edge, standing up for truth. And they raise all this money. I don't get it. I really don't. Which makes me really wonder if there's something like USAID going on where these groups are getting money from who knows where. Maybe China funds them just to keep people focusing on stupid things than the essential. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas. I have no idea. But I'll tell you, I'm stunned at the ridiculous, useless organizations that raise millions. There's really no excuse for it, folks. But if we don't see an increase in donations, we will not make our shows available on demand for 7 days. That will end. It'll go down to 3 days, then 2 days, then 1 day, and then we won't even make that. You can get the 24/7 stream. If you can't keep up, everything's behind a paywall. I don't want to do that. But I got way too many people watching that can support us financially. They're just choosing not to. And at some point, I've got to make an executive decision, or I do have to go and say to this company that's talking to Logan right now, fine, we're going to go to commercial breaks every 15 minutes and sell pickup trucks and Jeeps. I don't want to do any of this. I want the format we have now. Funding it with our foundation to push it out free between our foundation and our sponsors at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. So please, worldviewfoundation.com. Help me keep this format. Help me. I'm fighting to keep this format, folks. But some of you can give $20 a month, set up an automatic account at worldviewfoundation.com, but you've chosen not to. For those of you who have, thank you. Thank you. And let's pray that other people will join in and partner with us so we can keep the format we have. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com, and of course, worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. One of our biggest sponsors, as you know, is Bella Grace, and all these others, they're here, all right? I'll talk about them a little bit more, but we got to get going, okay? Let's get to our first guest. Joining me now is David Pyne, our national security expert. He is a regular guest here, folks, as you know, pretty much becoming every night because things are moving so fast on a global scale. He brings us an update, related to what was supposed to be a 2-hour phone call between President Trump and the Russian President Vladimir Putin, I think turned into 3 hours. He joins us now. David, thanks for being with us again tonight.
Hey, Brannon, great to be with you.
We had you on radio today at 1 o'clock Central on our 74 terrestrial stations, and here we are back tonight. So much is happening. We know that call was taking place. Now it went from 2 hours to 3 hours. Before we get to some kind of shocking news coming out of China tonight as well as something a map I want to show related to an EMP attack on the country. Tell us, what are you hearing came out of that call with President Trump and Putin?
Well, I think it was a very positive call. There was nothing really sweeping or earth-shattering that came out of it. But probably one of the best things that came out of it is it appears that President Trump has come around to Russia's position that this war can only be resolved in bilateral talks, excluding Ukraine and the EU, one-on-one between the Trump administration and the Putin government in Russia. And I've been saying for months, if not years, that that's really the only way that we can resolve the conflict, because Zelensky and the EU leaders are adamantly opposed to peace. This whole idea of a 30-day ceasefire that Zelensky was convinced to sign off on, it was actually a British plan, which Ukraine Zelensky accepted to try to make Russia look bad, but he has zero desire or intention of following through with that, even if Russia had accepted it. But the other big thing is that came out of it is that Russia agreed to stop attacking Ukraine's energy and infrastructure in exchange for Ukraine doing the same thing. And I would say that that's probably a mutually beneficial part of the agreement. I think Zelensky should accept that. I don't think he necessarily will, but it would benefit Ukraine, obviously, to have Russia stop attacking its grid and energy system, because Ukraine has really suffered. The winter's ending, but Ukrainians have really suffered at not having blackouts and only a few hours of power in some cases a day. A lot of what was discussed, it was really related to kind of a comprehensive peace agreement. Russia's desire to have a comprehensive and final peace that would resolve the Ukrainian conflict on a permanent basis, which is something, again, that neither Ukraine or the EU has really wanted to support, and to address the origins of the conflict, why to prevent it breaking out in the future.
Yeah. Let's talk about let's move on to China. You've posted on your Twitter feed, Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrested the Chinese equivalent to the U.S. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Wow. We talked a little bit about this with Gordon Chang last week, but this is getting up high into the leadership now. What is going on?
Well, I think you can kind of relate this to, Stalin's purge back in, I think 1937 and 38, when he was getting ready for war. He was expecting war to break out between Germany and the Western powers, and eventually between the European powers and Russia itself. Then, of course, the Soviet Union. To me, I think to Western observers, it doesn't really make sense to, replace your military leadership right before a major, global conflict with a enemy superpower. But what I have heard is that some of the folks that are being replaced reportedly are a little skittish when it comes to risking a full-scale war with the United States. So that could explain it. Obviously he wants to have loyalists. He wants to have Chinese generals that are willing to press the nuclear button if he makes that decision to engage in super EMP and massive cyber attacks on the U.S. if that's what Xi Jinping decides needs to happen. And so I think that's probably the main rationale for these replacements. So I don't think this demonstrates the U.S. shouldn't celebrate any of these replacements, because if anything, the old military and Ministry of Defense leaders are being replaced with folks that are even more hardline against the U.S.
Okay, so this tells you that he is preparing to go to war, or at least preparing to take Taiwan, or what?
Well, they're going way back. There were reports that there was a U.S. Army major that was kind of observing. I think he was an military observer to Chinese PLA exercises in Africa, in East Africa, near their main naval base in Djibouti. And as he was watching the amphibious exercises, he asked one of the PLA soldiers or officers, are you guys getting ready to invade Taiwan? And he replied, no, we're getting ready to invade the U.S. So there's a lot of contingencies. I will say that nothing is set in stone at this point. I think the initial plan would be to move on Taiwan. Every indication is that it would be Taiwan, but they're building a tremendous amphibious capability which we haven't seen since the U.S. invasion or the Allied invasion of Normandy in 1944. Their amphibious capabilities now exceed the U.S., I think, by a wide margin. So that amphibious capability can be used for kind of regional amphibious invasions. It could be used for the Philippines, for Taiwan, for Japan, even Australia. It could also be used for kind of a springboard to invade Hawaii or even the Western United States itself.
I want to go to another one of your ex-posts as well, David. The Trump administration strikes on the Houthis are serving to weaken the U.S. military's ability to deter Chinese aggression against Taiwan and U.S. treaty allies in the Western Pacific. But the president's threats to go to war with a nuclear-armed Iran are the most troubling, seeming to violate his desire to be remembered as a peacemaker who ended and avoided wars as would escalate to an unwinnable nuclear war, World War III. The U.S. has already sunk an Iranian spy ship, putting us on the road to war with Iran. As Vice President Vance has stated, U.S. interests often differ with Israel's, and a U.S. war with Iran would be very much against U.S. national security. Trump gave Netanyahu the green light to break the excellent ceasefire agreement. He pressured them to accept with Hamas potentially signing the remaining hostages' death warrants. President Trump should end this U.S. proxy war with Iran and pressure Israel to end its military strikes against Gaza, which have killed 400 Palestinians during the past 24 hours, adding to the previous tally of 40,000 men, women, and children. Okay, so the concern is that, look, we only have so much, as we've said the other night, stock on the shelves. We've spent a ton in Ukraine under Biden. Now we're doing more with the Houthis. And again, as we went to last night, this is, I'm concerned, a global strategy to distract and weaken America before China moves on Taiwan. In other words, are they playing President Trump? Are they playing him and enticing him into this to shoot off more, to do more, and then weaken us in our, because some of these things, we need a couple years to boost back up the inventory of our munitions, right?
Actually, in some cases, such as 155 millimeter heavy artillery ammunition, it could take up to a decade to replenish our stocks that we've given away to Ukraine. But every weapon that we use on these peripheral threats like the Houthis, which are a nuisance to international shipping, but don't pose any major threat to the United States, weakens our ability to deter Chinese aggression. And they're looking at, they see a unilaterally disarmed United States military, and they see us bogged down in two proxy wars, one in Ukraine and the Middle East. And Xi Jinping is undoubtedly thinking, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. They've been waiting for, they've been primed and ready to invade Taiwan, I believe, since 2020. That's the direction that Xi Jinping gave the PLA, is that they need to be ready to invade to go to war, potentially with the U.S. by 2020. It's now 5 years later. I've always said his timeline was 2025, his drop dead date. I've now extended that. It could be 2027. I might have been a couple years off. But I think it's more likely to happen this year, just because I think the Ukraine war is winding down, and they really want to make their move before Russia and the U.S. kind of forge this new strategic partnership for peace that could potentially neutralize their alliance with Russia, meaning that while they would remain allies on paper, Russia would have no incentive to make any aggressive moves against the U.S. if they're, partnering together to forge a new era of U.S.-Russian cooperation, not seen since perhaps World War II.
So you would not be shocked to see China move against Taiwan this year, 2025?
I think there's probably a 25 to 30% chance they'll move on Taiwan next month. But probably, I would say well over 50% that they'll do it by October, November.
Wow. Okay. So we got that. Let's say that gets going. Then you add what's going on in the Middle East. Then you add in going after Iran. If we were to strike Iran's nuclear facilities with Israel's help, I'm sure they'd be involved, joint exercise. what would be Iran's first response? Would their first response to be to send what? Do they have hypersonic, supersonic missiles? And if so, would they send them to U.S. military bases in the Middle East? And if so, which ones? How many dead American soldiers are we looking at within minutes if this scenario plays out?
Well, I don't think it would be immediate. You know, Iran has much more rational leaders than we've been led to believe that they do. I believe that, as Peter Pry did, and as former CIA director James Woolsey stated in an article in 2016, that Iran has had nuclear weapons for probably at least a decade, perhaps more. I mean, their ICBM program dates back to 2005. There's no country in the world that's ever had an ICBM program that wasn't already a nuclear power. According to Peter Pry, they were 3 months away from developing nuclear weapons in 2003. I listened to Kurt Weldon give an interview in 2006 in which he confirmed that the CIA was saying that Iran would have nukes by 2010, according to their assessment. Even back then, we hear the same thing we hear today, that this is almost 20 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago, that Iran was on the verge of developing nuclear weapons. I mean, does any person in their right mind believe that Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, would not develop nuclear weapons when they were mere months away? It's really incredulous. The same people that claim that Iran doesn't have nukes yet, say that they're an Islamist terrorist regime, and if they had them, they nuke Israel. Iran's they're much more rational than that. But that said, if we were to strike their nuclear, that's really a red line for them. If we were to strike their nuclear facilities directly with the U.S. and Israel, I think they would reveal the existence of their nuclear missile arsenal at that time, and they would essentially say, one more time, and we'll have a nuclear response. And they might even reveal the existence of their super EMP satellites, which are really their trump card, because all they have to do is press a button and they could take out all of the entire U.S. Critical infrastructure without warning.
And that's that EMP blast radius. Now, is that with a satellite, or is that with something shot off of a cargo ship in the Gulf of America?
So, most missiles that are shot off cargo ships are medium-range ballistic missiles or hypersonic missiles. So this map would be either an ICBM delivery or it would be a super EMP satellite. So as you can see from this map, there is kind of an optimum altitude that blankets all the U.S. with EMP effects, kind of what I call an EMP pancake, that kind of round circle. That could take out our critical infrastructure within that circle, and the optimum altitude is about 285 miles. So I've been aware of that for some time. It was 2 or 3 years ago that I saw that Iran put two additional satellites into orbit at 285 miles. And so that's a real red flag. Folks, EMP experts like me know what that means, and it means that Iran likely does have a nuclear capability, and they have super EMP weapons are part of their military doctrine. They consider it a form of cyber warfare, so they don't believe it crosses the nuclear threshold, and they would not expect the U.S. to respond with a nuclear retaliatory strike in response to a super EMP attack that severely degrades our NC3 capability. To put in question whether we could launch a nuclear response at all.
And so these are two satellites that orbit and come over the Earth, just like North Korea's two satellites?
They're very similar to North Korea's satellites. I haven't confirmed if they're in polar orbit as the North Korean satellites are. The North Koreans, of course, orbit their satellites, so they come over the southern U.S. To the north in order to evade our early warning systems. Because we have very minimal early warning detection in terms of ground-based radars and whatnot from the south.
So Iran has two of these satellites.
Yeah, at one point they had three, but they first launched a satellite in 2020. I think then they launched a couple others in either 2022 or 23, and then I think one or two since. But they permanently had at least 2 in orbit at this altitude, which was, again, is the optimal altitude to strike the U.S. with a super EMP attack.
Do both of them cross over the U.S. regularly?
Yes, they do.
Wow. And go back to Iran real quick. Should we hit their nuclear facilities, or do you see them hitting us with ballistic missiles? How would they strike our military bases, perhaps in the Middle East? And are they using supersonic or hypersonic missiles?
Well, I think that the high value targets within the Middle East are aircraft carriers or carrier strike groups. I mean, certainly they could strike our U.S. military bases in the region. We have troops, of course, in Iraq, which is essentially an Iranian proxy, as well as Syria, which used to be an Iranian proxy and now no longer is, but still is well within striking distance of their proxies in Iraq. So they could definitely target and kill hundreds of our U.S. troops. And if you'll excuse me, I need to plug in my computer before it dies.
Plug it in real quick. And folks, while we're doing that, remind you again, we are brought to you by you. We do these long format interviews all the time, folks, and we just keep cranking out the information. But I got to have your support to keep all this going. Worldviewfoundation.com. That's one way you can do it. Worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. So again, please, folks, we have chosen this format, which is we don't take a lot of commercial breaks. We could do like the networks do and do about every 10 minutes a commercial break for 4 or 5 minutes, but we try not to do that, folks, because if you'll support us, we're committed to this format. But it's vital we have your support. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there. Please also consider going to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Check out all of our different sponsors there, folks, from Worldview Talk, which gets you your satellite phone. So should the grid go down, you can have a satellite phone. You can have a bivvy where you can actually text using your phone, but not using the cell tower. Use your phone to send it to that bivvy in your hand. That bivvy sends it to the satellite down to your family member that has one. Solar generators. I have one of their solar generators, okay? If the grid goes down, excuse me, if the grid goes down, you're going to want to have some communication. Certainly the ability to use something to power some of your devices, and your coffee pot, your recharge your satellite phone, whatever else you've got, flashlights that are rechargeable, all this stuff. You're going to want to have a solar generator. You're going to check it out right there at worldviewtalk.com, or call 1-866-738-3224. I would also direct you real quick to worldviewstore.com. I don't even know if we have that on here, Logan. Worldviewstore.com. I guess we better put that on here. Worldviewstore.com. That's where you can get all your emergency freeze-dried food, 6 months, 3 month, a year, 2 year breakfast, fruits and vegetables, gluten-free, all of it. Worldviewstore.com. All right, let's go back to David Pyne. David, you got your computer plugged in. I'll let you pick up where you left off.
Yeah, as I was saying, Iran does have a tremendous stockpile of ballistic and cruise missiles, and increasingly large stockpile of hypersonic missiles. I think they may have more hypersonic missiles than the U.S., certainly in the Mach 4 range and above, which is just below hypersonic, of the kind that we've seen the Houthis use against carrier strike groups in the Red Sea. But I think that the easiest targets for them would be to typically we have a carrier strike group that's just outside the Persian Gulf. So that would be an easy striking range for them directly from Iran. Those would probably be their top targets if they decided to pursue more of a conventional attack. But they might also have conventional EMPs that they could use to take out almost entire carrier strike groups with a few one or more conventional EMPs that wouldn't cross the nuclear threshold. That's technology that China has. We know Russia has that as well. So there's a lot of different options they have. And again, I can't overemphasize this enough. If Trump decides to attack Iran directly, Russia and China are military allies of Iran, and so they could potentially enter the fray, and most likely they would do so through, obviously in the case of China, they would support Iran indirectly by invading Taiwan to draw U.S. military forces away from the Middle Eastern Iranian theater. Whereas and Russia could also potentially join in with major ramped up cyber attacks against the U.S. and perhaps even NATO.
All right, dangerous times, right, David?
Very dangerous. Yep, I saw Leo Hohmann just posted an article saying that he predicts the chances of World War III under Trump are at 50%, but he says that if it had been Kamala Harris, it would have been 100%. And sadly, I largely agree with this assessment.
Really sad. dpyne.substack.com, dpyne.substack.com. Let me ask you about, on the way out, if we were to go to World War III, would they have to re-implement the draft, David?
No, what a lot of people don't realize about World War III is, I always say that we'll know we're in World War III when the power goes off and never comes on again. So this would be a war that would be very quick. It would be a war that lasted, weeks at most, but more likely days, at least in the initial phase. Because I predict that on day one of intense combat operations with China, certainly they would take out the U.S. critical infrastructure with a massive cyber attack and counter space attack. We know that according to Senate Armed Services Committee hearings, that many of the senators said during hearings in 2023 that all U.S. satellites would be down within 2 hours of the onset of the conflict. So that would, those two things would have a massive impact. And if we were unable to defeat the China cyber attack, that could have almost an EMP type effect on our population, where tens of millions, perhaps even a couple hundred millions of Americans perish over a year. So that's a huge threat.
So there won't be time for a draft, is what you're saying?
No, there's not going to be time for a draft. Basically, the war would essentially be won by the enemy within the first several days of the conflict, I think, or again, within the first 2 or 3 weeks at most, if we were to fight, the U.S. or Russia or China. We could start mobilizing, but we wouldn't even realize we had the need to mobilize a large number of reservists until it was too late. And once that happens, the government is going to be unable to communicate and to essentially govern. And so there would be a very limited mobilization capability from what it is today.
And of course, from the time you draft civilians to the time you can actually put them on the battlefield is what, a year?
Well, if you're Ukraine, you put them in you take them off the streets and put them on the front line 3 days later to get shot. It's almost murder, essentially what they're doing. But so desperate, the more desperate a country is, the more willing they are to put green troops and untrained troops on the front line. But again, our training capabilities would be greatly degraded in a cyber or EMP attack scenario, or even a limited nuclear strike scenario. So typically, it takes at least a few months, and I would say more closer to 6 months to fully train, an infantryman, or let alone someone in a more specialized MOS.
All right. So one of the things obviously coming out of this conversation is, I think you and I agree, there's not much I can do other than maybe make my voice known, you, our audience, to our elected officials, slow down. We don't want to go to war with Iran. We don't want to do anything to escalate this. We don't want to be seen as weak, but we also don't want to be played. We don't want China playing us and using Iran to do it and having us shoot off more munitions and more rockets and things that we need to save. But aside from that, we need to be preparing. Individual families need to prepare. There will be no government. We go to World War III and this scenario plays out like you're talking, there will be no government. You will be on your own. And if you think the people of North Carolina had it rough, or the people of Eastern Tennessee, you're going to be on your own. That's all I can tell you. And you better be prepared. Correct, David?
Absolutely right. I think local governments would likely survive. City and county governments, particularly in rural areas, there might even be instances of some state governments, retaining some governing capability. Again, more in rural states than highly populated states. But the central government would be gone. I mean, there would be remnants unable to communicate with each other. So the country would be ungovernable, and we could collapse into essentially a patchwork of principalities and regions that resembles pre-imperial Germany back when it was a bunch of city-states. I hesitate to even say that, but perhaps I think more along the lines of the former Yugoslavia, breaking up into multiple pieces.
But even if you have states that survive, now you've got a huge manufacturing, distribution, food, farmers. You have a huge crisis. I mean, the humanitarian crisis and the number of millions of Americans that will die due to disease, starvation, and societal unrest is going to be overwhelming.
It would be a genocide on the level of the Jews being exterminated. The enemy wouldn't even have to be here and to do the killing. We would be killing each other off for the last scraps of food and potable water, unfortunately.
Which again goes back to the map that was put out, in 2014, showing a decrease in American population by 68.5% by the end of 2025.
Was that kind of like a New World Order type?
No, that was like a DARPA. That was like a DARPA map and prediction. They predicted like 77% for Europe, 68.5% for America by the end of 2025, decrease in population. And we were trying to figure out, are they talking pandemic, plague, World War III? What are they talking? Got a lot of people following that map and that work. It was put out by really the intelligence and military industrial complex.
Yeah, that's really disturbing and troubling that they're thinking that far ahead. But yeah, it could be any number of those things that you mentioned, or all of them combined at once. It could be, China has the capability to unleash deadly biological weapons in our country, either with the troops they have, in the U.S. itself, or with other means of terrorist strikes or from container ships and things of that nature. They also could potentially use the Club K container missiles that I know you reported on when they first came out, to take out D.C., NORAD, STRATCOM, the Pentagon, White House. So there's all kinds of scenarios, and there, it all goes back to what I said during your radio show. Is that if the U.S. were not so interconnected in terms of our alliance system with countries half a world away, no one would care about bothering us. Back in 2003, I kind of wrote a position paper when I was president of a research organization based in D.C., advocating the U.S. withdraw 75% of its military forces from Europe and East Asia. And the purpose of that was to, if we decreased our threat profile to Russia and China, they'd be more likely to go out, to attack each other than they would to view us as a threat. And I think that still holds water. Our alliances don't make us stronger; they put us at far greater risk. And I think the Ukraine war has shown that better than anything else to date.
Well, that report I'm referring to is the Deagle, D-E-A-G-E-L, the Deagle report. It's all over the place. You could go look it up. It's like 68.5% of the U.S. population gone by the end of 2025, and now we're looking at this. Now we're staring this down. So there you go. Well, it's important to be informed and stay ahead of what's going on, and to try to be prepared, not panic, but prepare. And that's what we're doing. But again, we should all be saying a prayer for Donald Trump tonight to make wise decisions and not be baited into something that's meant to weaken us for the ultimate battle with China.
Yeah, we absolutely should. His foreign policy with regards to Russia is so, has so much potential to increase our security. It would really be a shame to see him squander it with an attack in Iran that could cause all of our peace talks to collapse like a house of cards and give China, an opportunity to attack Taiwan in the belief that we couldn't respond effectively. So he definitely needs our prayers.
Indeed. dpyne.substack.com, dpyne.substack.com, our national security expert, David Pyne. David, as always, thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Brannon. You're a true patriot.
You too, my friend. Pyne, dpyne.substack.com. There it is on the screen. And he's also the president of the EMP Task Force, emptaskforce.us. Joining me now is Leo Hohmann. Leo just had a stunning interview with David Pyne, kind of scary. Basically, he's saying President Trump has to be very careful to make sure that Iran is not coaxing him and goading him into war to weaken us further, which would give their ally China a chance to move against Taiwan. And of course, then you have China and Iran working together either through cyber or EMP to bring down America, and we're toast, we're done. And he says that he thinks there's a 25% chance or so, that 25% chance around there that China might move on Taiwan this spring, but he thinks there's a considerable chance they might move on Taiwan before the year is over, particularly before the United States and Russia can hammer out some kind of closer relationship and deal. He talked about the fact that people better get ready because there won't be a federal government if we go to World War III. There won't even be time to have a draft. What are your thoughts on what David has said tonight? He referenced, by the way, your new article.
Yeah, in which I stated that from my perspective, looking at the negotiations with Trump and Putin today and just all of what was leading up to it, the back and forth with Ukraine. First, we kick them out of the White House and tell them to go home, and the pouting of Zelensky, but then he apologizes and Trump says, okay, I'll continue. He apologizes like Trump asked him to, like a good little boy, and then Trump restores funding and weapons shipments to Ukraine. But now we have the strange scenario where Trump seems to be negotiating with just one of the two parties, Russia, while funding the other party that's not present in the negotiations, that being Ukraine. And so given all of this bizarre activity, I still place the chances of World War III breaking out, Brannon, under Trump's watch at greater than 50%. Now, that may sound horrible, but if Kamala Harris had been elected, I put the chances of World War III at nearly 100%, probably around 99%. So we're still better off. I'm not totally complaining, but at the same time, I'm very concerned at what I see going down in these negotiations. It just seems very unstable from one day to the next. There was no ceasefire agreed to today in the phone conversation between Putin and Trump, but they did agree to work towards a ceasefire. Both agreed that a ceasefire is desirable and would work towards it, and they would start with a ceasefire on attacks among the two countries' energy infrastructure. So I guess the ball is moving down the field, but not very quickly, and my concern is that time is on the globalist side. And in my article, I point out, I lay out the globalist strategy to destabilize the world and plummet it into World War III by utterly destroying normal relations between the world's two greatest nuclear superpowers, that being Russia and the United States. As I said, they were well on their way to accomplishing that with 100% accuracy under the Biden-Harris regime. Trump has thrown a wrench in the deal, but I'm afraid he could just be slowing it down. I hope that's not the case.
And of course, David and I talked about the number of people that would die in such a war between Iran and China and Iran using some of their missiles, ballistic missiles, to go after our military bases. And then he talked about 2 satellites, at least 2, by Iran circling over the U.S. with a nuclear weapon on board from EMP. You add that to the 2 that circle us by North Korea. And again, we're in a much more dangerous situation than the country knows. You know, interesting 100%. Is so many people say America's so back, we're so back, and they're all going on with their life. I'm still prepping. I'm adding to my prepper plans every week. Every week I'm doing something new to resupply or add to my prepper plans, where the average conservative in America, even the average conservative political junkie, they're not paying attention to what we're paying attention to. And if they are, they don't understand what they're seeing. And so those who aren't preparing because Trump got elected, you don't understand what's happening here.
Not at all, Brannon. You're exactly right. And let's not forget that is one of the primary goals of the globalists. When I say the globalists, I'm talking about those who subscribe to the whole Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum, Green New Deal, climate change agenda. Which also includes the UN Agenda 2030. And that is to depopulate the world. And so that is one of the main reasons they are pushing so hard to trigger World War III. And the best way to do that, as I said, is to destroy the relations between the world's 2 most feared nuclear superpowers, the United States and Russia. If we can get those 2 countries to go at each other, the globalist figure, we have the best chance of triggering World War III and a huge, massive depopulation of the world in combination with vaccines, bioengineered plagues, which we saw with COVID. They have several others on the shelf that they could roll out simultaneously with the war agenda, and they would accomplish their main goal, which is to depopulate the world and instill greater, tighter controls on the remaining population.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Okay, so I mentioned the Deagle report to David, and I'm like, David, what you're laying out to me sounds like the Deagle report and depopulating the world, the planet. You got like 77% gone from Europe, 68.5% gone from America. I mean, and yet this is what you're looking at if we go to World War III. If these countries decide to attack Europe, you know, London's gone, a lot of these cities are gone. If they decide to bring us down with a cyber attack in America for months on end, or an EMP, no, this is what we're talking about. So the Deagle report put out by the military-industrial complex is still in play. For those who don't know what the Deagle report is, are they forgotten? This isn't just some crazy conspiracy group. This is the military-industrial complex and DARPA doing this back in 2014, right?
Right, and they predicted that by the end of 2025, we would see these massive depopulation figures, which you can't really imagine happening short of having just a horrendous world war. And people keep talking. People in America on both sides of the aisle, your liberal Democrats, your neocon conservatives, they all want President Trump to be tougher on Russia, and they'll always throw out the example, of Neville Chamberlain before World War II. He was too appeasing towards Hitler, and he waived that peace in our time agreement, the peace pact he'd signed with Hitler, and how that led to the breakout of World War II. What they don't realize is we live in a different time, in a different era, with totally different dynamics in play now than in 1933 or 38, whenever, I don't know the exact date of that Chamberlain document, but we have a completely different set of dynamics geopolitically today. We did not have a world with multiple countries in possession of nuclear weapons back then. The United States was on the cusp of reaching that in the 1930s, and was the only country that by the 1943-44 had actually achieved the world's first nuclear weapon. That is worlds different than the situation today, where you have massive nuclear arsenals in possession of more than two countries, several countries, but especially the United States and Russia, have just thousands of these weapons. And so we have enough firepower, nuclear firepower on the earth today to destroy this planet several times over. And yet you hear people still talking as if we're in 1935 or 1940, Brannon. It really is surprising to me how many smart people, especially in the conservative side, don't seem to realize what the stakes are.
Indeed, they don't. Okay, so I guess that's about it, unless you want to add something else to it before I switch to another topic real quick.
That's pretty much it on that topic, Brannon.
All right, so we apparently have now the JFK files being released. Here we go, March 18th, 2025. Now they've started to release some of them, and as they do this, they're going to put these entries in here. There'll be more and more, and of course, it's going to take a while to go through all of these. It's like 80,000 pages. I mean, I could just pick a random PDF and see what it is. I mean, again, it is going to take a long time to go through this. I asked Grok today if Grok was going to be able to tell me what was in them, and Grok said, I will, when they get up on the National Archive website, I'll go through them and I'll try to give you bullet points. So we'll see what Grok comes up with, but there you go. What are your thoughts tonight on the JFK files? I guess 80,000 pages being released as we go through these right here live on the air.
So all 80,000 have been already released this evening?
Well, it looks like it. I mean, unless someone can tell me otherwise.
Because I was reading somewhere, I read somewhere less than an hour ago that they were delaying some of them indefinitely. So,
well,
I don't know what to believe right at this point, Brannon. But it will take time. If it's going to take time for Grok, it's going to take time for human eyes to go through and assess exactly what's been released here. But my concern is that they're still not going to have all of them released, and that it's still going to be, pick your conspiracy theory of choice, because we don't have all the information. And when you don't have all the information, that leaves it open to, pretty much anyone's interpretation as to what could have actually happened that led to the death of President John F. Kennedy on that day in November of 1962.
Indeed. Well, I also have read that they're still uploading them, that it being 80,000 files is taking them a while to get them all uploaded. So some of these, like this is supposedly 1998, May 15th, 1998. So
did I say 62? I meant 63. Yeah.
Yeah. But I went ahead and went to the end, but I don't know if this is the end. They may be adding more as they continue going in here. But there's a lot. There's already a lot to look at.
Yeah.
So do you think anything will come of it? Some people are saying this is all a head fake. There's not going to be anything in here. What do you think?
Well, and somebody are saying that, since they've delayed it so long, even Trump now has been off. He promised to do this, but he's been in office for over 2 months now, and we're just starting to get them released. And so, and then there was that whole snafu with the FBI hiding certain documents. So, excuse me, there's always going to be concern that maybe the most bombshell documents are being held back, and that what we actually end up will be some, nothing burger. I hope that's not the case, Brannon, and that we actually find out, not only what documents were withheld, but why they were withheld. Many of them were even withheld from the Warren Commission. So, how could the Warren Commission make a good and accurate investigative finding without all of the information? And so because of that, nobody's ever believed the official government narrative. So I'm afraid if we don't come up with something that shifts the official government narrative, people are going to be considering this just another government whitewash.
And then any comment on Chief Justice John Roberts today related to his thoughts about not impeaching these judges? We got these rogue judges trying to tell Trump how to run national security.
Yeah, well, he basically rebuked the Trump administration, if I understand it correctly, Brannon.
Yep, you're right.
Well, I'd like to know, where was the statement from Chief Justice Roberts when Chuck Schumer stood on the steps of the Supreme Court back in 2020 and said that, Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Gorsuch were going to pay the price and reap a whirlwind if they did not vote in favor of abortion on demand in all 50 states? I don't remember any rebuke coming from the Chief Justice back then. So, yes, in a way, he's correct. We should just let the appellate process play out, as he said, rather than have, another branch of government, whether it be Congress or the executive, putting pressure on the Supreme Court. But on the other hand, it seems like the pressure until Donald Trump, the pressure only comes from the left side of the aisle.
Mm-hmm. And then, Leo, we've got, of course, the rolls from this video. We've got a bunch of pro-Hamas folks out in the streets in New York. That video coming in this evening from earlier. Isn't it interesting that we have all of these illegals here still? So many of them, barely any of them been removed. Thankful for the ones that have, but barely any. Still lots of CCP here, Hezbollah, Hamas, and then who knows how many students who are born and raised here have been radicalized and will become jihadis off the college campuses. So all of this, as America looks to perhaps confront Iran, and of course, then that would mean really confronting China, who's in a relationship with them. I mean, we are in a spot most Americans, I'll say this again, we're in a spot most Americans do not understand. They say ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is deadly, to be honest with you, because if any of this materializes to any serious degree, most Americans are not ready for the disruption in our infrastructure and just-in-time inventory.
Oh, you are so correct about that, Brannon. And I read so much lately in the conservative media about how, the Democrats are in disarray, the Democratic Party is collapsing, the Democratic Party has no leader, they're in total disarray. Well, while all that might be true, it boggles my mind how they refuse to look at the big picture. We still have a judicial branch that is striking down, it seems like every other day in a new court case, striking down an element of the Trump agenda. So we may not need a viable Democrat Party. We have these radical activist judges to do the work for them. They're completely blocking a large part of the Trump agenda. Yesterday, it was a case where they were, or the day before, a judge appointed by Barack Obama was literally telling Trump to turn the planes around in midair and not deport these criminal, illegal gangbangers from Venezuela who are going around murdering people, selling drugs, human trafficking, and we have a single federal judge saying Trump can't deport them. That boggles my mind. And now today there was another federal judge, also appointed by Barack Obama, Brannon, who ruled that Trump cannot pick apart and cannot take down USAID and cannot end all of the contracts and basically put that slush fund out of business. That liberal left-wing slush fund can continue on now. They can't rehire the ones who have already been fired from that agency. But he cannot undo the USAID policies and agenda. This is a federal judge telling President Trump what he can and cannot do with a federal agency. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And also we have this tonight as well. Russia launches one of the largest suicide drone attacks against the of the war. They have hit the energy infrastructure in Slavinsk, causing near total blackout in the city. So I don't know. I thought we had.
Well, maybe that was one last big hit against the Ukrainian energy infrastructure before he agreed to a ceasefire on that particular type of attack.
Yeah, they're saying part of the city without electricity, local channels, immediate ceasefire across all energy sectors is working. So I don't know. This is all fluid, as we know. So
yes,
we'll keep it posted. As always, Leo, great job. We're going to push people to go to your new article at leohohmann.substack.com, leohohmann.substack.com. So thank you, Leo.
Thank you, Brannon.
All right, there you go, folks. Another long format interview with Leo. You want to keep it going, keep this format. I need your support. Where's my foundation page? There it is. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Come on, folks. Let me check the donations tonight when I get off the air and see something, please. We need to see something. We need to have a big week this week, folks. We've got a lot of bills that have come in. We need a big week this week so we keep this format going. Long format interviews and just cranking out the content for you. Going longer than normal tonight, folks. Going longer than normal. I pre-recorded an interview with Twyla Braze and with Tom DeWeese because not everybody wants to stay up as late as I do. But folks, I'm putting in a lot of hours to bring you this content each and every day, plus Worldview Radio, plus Worldview Report, plus all the other shows I sponsor here. I got to bring in over 40 grand a month to keep it all going, folks. Worldviewfoundation.com. All right, folks, before we go to our next guest, don't forget we have the restorative sleep. There's nothing in these because I don't want my studio dog Dolly to get a hold of them. So restorative sleep, you can get these at melissahousebg.com. They're all natural. Melissa takes 2 every night. They help her stay asleep, okay? Because her problem is waking up. Some of you may be going to sleep. Restorative sleep, it's all natural. Check it out, melissahousebg.com. Logan is on Bellatrim. Melissa is on Bellatrim. This is all natural. And this does a great job at lowering your bad cholesterol, raising your good cholesterol, normalizing your blood pressure, helping your cardiac health, lowers inflammation, optimizing your insulin. This is Bellatrim. So check all of this out, please, at none other than, I lost my computer. None other than melissahousebg.com, melissahousebg.com. Check it all out there, will you? Please check it out, melissahousebg.com. And of course, you know that I love the elixir. I don't think I have any elixirs over here. I think I've used them all. I got to get some more up here. I love the elixir. I take that every day, folks. So get a subscription to some of these things. This is another great way you can support us, folks. melissahousebg.com, melissahousebg.com. All right. Joining me now is someone that I've wanted to interview for some time. She has an awesome website. Here it is. Citizens Council for Health Freedom. There's so much we can talk about. We'll have to get her back. But I want to talk about the real ID. How many of you right now are struggling because you've got to get together your birth certificate, your social security card, maybe 3 or 4 pieces of mail with your home address on it, and get down to some government building and get the new real ID, the national ID card? Well, here's the problem for some people. They don't get mail at their house. They have to go to a P.O. box. What do you do in that case? I mean, the government never makes it easy on you, do they? Well, a lot of this, of course, is about, I think, tracking you and maybe getting ready for a global ID. Let's see what our guest thinks. Twyla Braze joins us tonight. Twyla, thank you for being with us.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks so much.
Let's talk about this real ID. You've got a great article over on your website, cchfreedom.org. We'll put that up on the screen there, cchfreedom.org. Tell us the history of this national ID, will you?
Yeah, so the history started in 2005 when in the middle of the night they passed the Real ID Act. And on the floor of the U.S. Senate, Tennessee Senator Lamar Alexander, said this is a national identification card. We haven't talked to the American people about this. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of having a national ID, but of course they went ahead and did it anyway. So that passed in 2005. In 2008, the Department of Homeland Security put out their very first rule, telling states to conform with the federal Real ID law. And that's when state legislators figured out that this very thing had happened. And so most of them said no. 25 states passed a law to prohibit conforming with the Real ID, and another 12 states passed resolutions opposing it. So essentially, it didn't go anywhere until President Obama in 2016 said you can't fly without the Real ID. And this was, of course, the Obama administration's attempt to try to move this thing forward, this national identification system. It's always been a lie, the you can't fly lie, and it's been used to coerce people into having this national ID in their pocket and in their wallet. But most people don't actually know that it's there. And I think, going along on the history, in 2017 and 2018, most of the states caved. A different set of legislators, they forgot their constitutional rights, which is states' rights to control identification, driving, etc. And they gave them up to the federal government, and they conformed. But Americans have not conformed in their cards. And so only 56% of Americans, the cards that Americans hold, are Real ID compliant. And so they are using this May 7th deadline to try to get as many as possible to comply by saying you can't fly. And it's still not true. You can still fly without a Real ID.
So they're lying to you, are they?
They're lying because they're not telling the whole truth. So the TSA has not change this date. They have left it as May 7th. Usually, I think about 6 times they have moved that deadline up. During COVID, I think they moved it up twice because they don't want to melee at the airport, because a lot of people don't have the Real ID. And if they just pounced and said, okay, here's the date and that's it, no flying, that would just be crazy. And so they're saying that on May 7th, you can't fly without a Real ID, but it's not true, because the TSA is starting a 2-year-long progressive enforcement period. And we don't exactly know how that's going to look. It could be 3 strikes, you're out. It could be that they just give you a warning for the 2 years. And then finally on May 5th, 2027, they say, okay, that's it. Everybody's got to have it. But even then, you don't have to have it. And that's the important thing to understand. You can simply have a passport or a passport card or a military ID or a veteran's medical card. There are 16 different cards. And so for your listeners to understand why is this important? Why do we have an entire campaign? And you can find that campaign at refuserealid.org, refuserealid.org. We're trying to make sure that nobody gets the Real ID, and that they turn in the one that they have and switch to a standard driver's license, which you can do in 45 states. So the reason why, what's the danger, right? What's the danger of Real ID? Well, it starts with the fact that it's unconstitutional. It's a violation of states' rights. It's a violation of individual privacy rights. Then it continues on with the fact that the Secretary of Homeland Security can take this way beyond flight. Like, you need a Real ID to buy a gun. You need a Real ID to get married. You need a Real ID to open a bank account. The law says that the Secretary of State has sole authority to decide, doesn't have to go back to the president, doesn't have to go back to Congress, and therefore, this can really control anything that's happening in your life. The other thing to know is that they're planning to digitize it. So the DMVs came to Congress in December 2023, and they said that their plan is for beyond Real ID. That was the name of their testimony, the title. And they said, we want to start with 2% of the Real IDs digitized, put on people's phones, and have real-time and remote access to them. So what we're really talking about is a federal government intruding on state sovereignty, individual sovereignty, starting what could become a social credit system in Minnesota if we have nefarious people. But no matter what, it's giving up these rights to the federal government, and we don't even have any idea where they're going to go.
Okay, so I have a family member that needs to get their license renewed. Can they go and get a normal license renewed, or do they have to go get one of these real IDs? And the family member was told they had to go down to a certain office and sit and wait and prepare to wait for hours and hours and hours. Bring your birth certificate, your social security card, and 3 pieces of mail to your house. Well, most of the mail goes to Tennessee. Most of it goes to a PO box. So there's not a lot of mail going to the house. So, it's like, okay, I got birth certificate, I got social security card, but I don't have 3 pieces of mail to go to the house because the mail goes to a PO box. So the individual's like, what do I do? So it's kind of interesting. I'm interviewing you right now. What do they do?
Yeah.
They're in Tennessee.
They go down to the DMV and they get a standard driver's license. There are 5 states that don't allow you to do that. Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, Wyoming, and why can't I think of the 5th one? But it's not Tennessee. And Texas, there we go. And so they go down and get a standard driver's license. They make sure that they have a passport or a passport card if they're thinking about flying or doing anything else, because that's all you need. And the important reason why, some people just say, well, that's just another government ID. Does it really matter? It really, really matters. Because they're not going to require you to take your passport to drive, to take your passport to buy a gun, right? They want to get this real ID national card in play so that they can require it for all of these things in the future. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put into the law that it could be expanded to for any other reason and any other purpose that the Secretary of Homeland Security shall decide. They would have left it at federal buildings, nuclear facilities, and commercial flight, but they didn't. And they are using commercial flight as the way to get everybody to submit. And they're going to inflict pain. They're going to try to inflict pain over the next 2 years to try to get you to submit. But you never, ever have to submit. You can simply go get your standard driver's license, and then you can get your passport if you're worried that our organization will not be successful. So we are the lead organization trying to stop real ID, because we know that if you have a federal ID card that can be turned into a tracking card, turned into digital, put on your phone, remotely accessed, that this is really the end of freedom in the country.
And
it's
that's
not
what they
a
want.
small thing.
This is what the World Economic Forum, wants. I'm sure. Obviously, you track the World Economic Forum. We've been tracking them for years. I have a graphic. I'll bring it up here. Here's a graphic from 2018. Okay, this is 2018. At the very bottom of the screen, in very small print, says 2018. At the center, digital identity. They're openly stating their goal is for citizens to access and use services, file taxes, vote, collect benefits. They have to have a digital ID. For social interactions, to access third-party services that rely on social media logins, you're going to have a digital ID. To shop, to conduct business transactions and secure payments, you're going to have a digital ID. Travel and mobility, to book trips, to go through border control between countries or regions, they want you to have a digital ID. But this was, again, it's 2018. And then financial services, to open a bank account, carry out online and financial transactions, they want you to have a digital ID. Well, when we know this is coming from the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, back in 2018, we know ultimately this is a globalist agenda. Now you title that the social credit scores in 15-minute cities, and they can shove us into our little ghettos like they did in Poland and Germany, and say, you're not leaving. Your card says you can't go out. Sorry, you can't get on a plane, can't get on a bus, whatever. This is not what we want, but this is where they're going, right?
Yes, and it's even beyond that, right? So most people don't understand that their face on the Real ID is a biometric. So this whole thing about scanning your face in the airport. They're trying to compare with the biometric. And so the rule that came out of the law says that they can start with the facial biometric, but they can add other biometrics. So they could take your eye scan, they could take your palm scan, your fingerprint, your DNA. And so this is like using your body against you, using your body to control what you can and cannot do. And I think it's really important to understand, if they have remote access to your identification credential, it means that they control your life. They can shut it off at any time. They can alter it at any time. They can limit the access to it. We don't even know how far they could take it once they have that kind of control over your identification credential.
Wow. Now, you're the lead organization fighting this. Are you working with Kristi Noem? Are you working with, any of the folks in the Trump administration? Are they listening to you? Are they responding to you?
So what we're doing at the moment, because of where Congress is, Congress could have done a Congressional Review Act and just forced the TSA to withdraw the rule that has anything to do with May 7th. But we heard that it was going to be very hard to do. It didn't rise to the level of the things that they were hoping to do. And even the things that they were hoping to do in the first 60 legislative days, they were not allowed to do because the Democrats shut them down. So then we were trying on the budget bills, and the problem is, as we've been hearing from Congress, is that they're not hearing from people. They said, well, we're not hearing from people. Well, yes, because nobody understands what they have in their pocket. They don't see the net that's closing around them because of this, the star card. So for those who don't know this, I realize I didn't say so, but if you have a star on your ID or on your driver's license, you have a real ID, and that's what you should turn in and switch. So make the switch back to a standard driver's license. Anyway, they aren't hearing from people. So if you go to refuserealid.org, refuserealid.org, you will get to the Real ID page on our website, and you will find places where you can take action and send messages into Congress. We have pre-written the email, pre-written the tweet. All you have to do is send them. We need to have Congress hear this. And so our letters are going into like Rand Paul's office, Massey's office, Trump's office. That's where they're going at the time. If we get to a certain point in time here, there's a whole nother strategy. We're building an entire campaign, thinking that this is probably going to be, at least or up to 2 years. Hopefully it will be shorter than that. And in addition to that, I would ask your listeners, talk to your state legislators. There are state legislators around the country that we are working with who are planning to try to extract themselves from compliance with the Federal ID Act. And so we know some of their names, and we know that they are trying to find more legislators who will submit the bills to pull themselves out of the Real ID contract. And so the more that we can hear, if you've got a legislator who you think is interested, contact us, contact the legislator. We've got the legislation and the ideas that they can use to write the bill and then try to get a vote to pull themselves out. But more than anything, we must raise public awareness. So we are actually planning a billboard campaign for people who might like to put up a billboard. We will hopefully have the one up in probably about a month, 3 weeks to a month. And then hopefully from there, we will get more people around the country to put up the billboard, because really, most people have no idea. They just think it's an ID. They don't know that they are giving up their freedom and their sovereignty.
And that's where we put that picture up off your website. So if they have a star on their license, like is on the right-hand side of that license, turn that in and get a normal driver's license, opt out of the system.
Right. And so 44% of IDs are not compliant, although you see the lines these days trying to get in because people are afraid and they don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand what they're giving up. But right now, 44%, so hundreds of millions of, not hundreds of millions, but like 140 or some million people, their cards are not compliant. 44%. So we'd like to make that 46%, 48%, 50, 52%. Let's turn that around. Let us have the number of non-compliant licenses increase.
Yeah.
Let us make this very, very difficult for them. Impossible, in fact, because they cannot just turn the switch. If people don't have the Real ID, they can't turn the switch. They can't suddenly require us all to have it, because it would be a complete pandemonium. And they can't afford that politically, and they can't afford that structurally, or as an organization at the airport. It'll just be crazy. And we have to leave them in that point as we move, hopefully, toward repealing Real ID altogether.
How does this fit with Agenda 21, Agenda 2030?
I'm not as versed on those, but I do know that people have told me that it's Agenda 2030, that it's really enmeshed with the whole digitization, the whole global IDs, that is part of the 2030.
Yeah, it is. I think it's 16.9 or something. Just get everybody in the world marked and numbered. So there you go. Absolute globalism. Twyla, what a great website. refuserealid.org. Here it is, folks. It has all the information, points to know, the history, how to take action, all kinds of information right here. Refuserealid.org. Twyla, I hope you'll come back.
I'd love to.
Love to have you. Thank you so much. In the meantime, folks, check out our website, refuserealid.org. All right, folks, I want you to go here right now, right away. worldviewtube.com/vault. It's where you can get access to 35 years of my books, ebooks, audiobooks, transcripts, documentaries, 21 years of my Ozarks conferences. You can join for as little as $9.99 a month. Here's another way you can support us, folks, and get something in return if you want. I mean, not that you're not getting something in return when you support us to the foundation. You're getting all this pre-programming. But we do archive it all at worldviewtube.com/vault. And if you're a member, you'll be able to live stream our event coming up April 15th at the Waukesha Expo Center with myself, Andy Woods, and our reporter in Israel, Aaron Lavarco. You'll be able to live stream it if you're a member, worldviewtube.com/vault. You'll also be able to live stream our fall conference coming up in October with all those other speakers I'm bringing in. And you're going to be able to live stream a few other big events we'll tell you about soon that, again, will be for Vault members only. It's our way of saying thank you for being a Vault member. It's one of the many ways we have to generate the revenue to cover the $40,000 plus a month we need to keep this network going. So please consider joining right now at worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. My whole Revelation series is in there. I've now taught 33 hours on Revelation. I'm up to Revelation chapter 14 right now, verse 1, starting Sunday night. So check all these out. Lots of great archives, more relevant than when we recorded them. All right, so check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault. Joining me now is Tom DeWeese of AmericanPolicy.org. Tom and I have been working together over 30 years. I know we look too young to have been working together over 30 years, but we have been. He joins us now. Tom, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brannon.
Hey, Tom, my editor, Jill, sent me a text today. She said, Brannon, what do you know about mega regions? And I had to look it up. Mega regions, like, what is this? And so I went and looked it up. And sure enough, there you go. Regional Plan Association map of the United States showing the 11 U.S. mega regions. What is this all about? And how does this fit in with Agenda 2030, if it does at all?
Well, it does. And I had not heard this particular term myself until you sent me the email this morning. But I did. I looked them up. And let's just start by getting what they tell us that they are. They first of all, I've warned for years about NGOs, non-governmental organizations, having a lot of control over our lives. Well, this is one of them. And this Regional Plan Association, they say our professional researchers and regional planners seek to improve the prosperity, sustainability, and quality of life through work in transportation, economic development, and real estate, environment, and open space, and more. Well, that's pretty much everything in our lives that they want to cover, but they go on. And they say the balanced and sustainable growth strategy of the United States in a regional plan, that is what they're looking at. And they go a little farther. They say America 2050, which is the program they're promoting, began several years ago, organized around the idea that these 11 mega regions, home to 3/4 of the nation's population, are the economic engines of the nation and the new competitive units in the global economy. First of all, it sounded like it was local. Now it's the global economy. And it says the focus is on the development of a national growth strategy. But then they go on and say that the context of the economic development strategy comes from the territorial cohesion program in the European Union. There it is. This is a global plan to force in all of our communities where the growth is, our major cities and the areas outside of them, controlling our development, our housing, our transportation, our energy use, all of those things that we've talked about over the years. And then they go on. There's one more thing that they really focus on. The Regional Plan Association will hold ourselves accountable for progress in diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI is the root of these plans as they're putting them together.
Now, some people, Tom, are saying that when they get the chance, they want to make all this gray area where humans cannot roam. Now, is that going too far for someone to speculate on that, or is that probably in their plan somewhere sometime?
Absolutely not. First of all, we've heard of 30 by 30. This is, Biden had an executive order on this, and they've been trying to put it in place for the last few years. And that was calling for locking away at least 30% of all the land in the United States by the year 2030. And what we have seen over the years is their move to move people off the rural areas into the cities, the smart growth plan, the sustainable development, the 15-minute cities. You've heard all these terms. That's what it all is. And why would they want to do that? Well, the truth of the matter is this is about control. And if they have people living in the cities, they can control your energy use. They can control your transportation, where you go, how you go, the living quarters that you have, and probably the job you're working as well. They control the economy. People who live in the rural areas are much more independent, and they can live without all of this control over them. And that's a threat to them. And we see now the attack on farmers all over the country. You've got China buying up a whole lot of the farmland, but you've also got conservation easements, all kind of movements to control farmland, take control of it away from the farmers themselves. They put these sustainable strategies on growth or on the farming. So they're telling them, well, you can't grow on this area of the farm because we need to keep that open for wildlife. And you need to cut down the size of your cattle herd, and because they cause pollution as well. And you should grow these kind of crops, but you should do it this way. Once they do all of that, the farmers learn that they can't stay in business, and because they can't make money using these programs. And what you're ending up with is the only farmers that can exist under all of this are the big corporate farms that play ball with all of this. And now the latest we hear from them is, well, eat bugs.
Yeah, well, this fits with your article you just wrote. Conservation easements, the land grab that must be stopped. And you got another one, but I'm going to go into this one right now. But I mean, this all fits with. Thank you, Caleb. This all fits with what we're talking about in these mega cities and making it where people can't go into biospheres. Remember, wasn't it a race car driver 20 years ago? His snowmobile broke down and ended up walking into a biosphere and ended up getting ticketed, some major race car driver. Do you remember that?
I have not heard that story. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'll look it up.
But I believe it.
I'll look it up. There was a major race car driver. He was on a snowmobile. I think it broke down, or he rode the snowmobile into a biosphere, and they ended up ticketing him because he'd gone into an area where, it was a biosphere or whatever. I'll look it up real quick. But this whole land grab thing, this fits with your conservation easement article.
Absolutely. We have, as I said, farmers are under massive pressure to, you just think about it. You're a farmer, and all you want to do is do your job, do, what you grew up to do, what you wanted to do on your land. And you've got all of these forces that have billions of dollars behind them. They've got they've locked themselves in with the elected representatives in the state government or the local county government, whatever it will be. And, they're all pressuring you to follow their rules. And you begin to think, well, there's nothing more I can do. What can I do here? And the other part of this is that your local elected representatives, the people that you elected to represent you, in your city council, your county commission, your state legislature, they are all kowtowing to these non-elected regional councils like this RPA that we're talking about here. And what you'll hear them say is, well, there's nothing more we can do because this is just the way it's done now. And this is all about total control. of your life and the things you need in your life. And we are losing farmers by the thousands. We're losing cattle ranchers by the thousands. And as I said, the only thing that's going to be left are corporate farms that play ball with them and do what they tell them to do.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. I want to try to see if I can find this article real quick, because I think I just found it. Okay, here we go. This is from the Washington Examiner. Okay, the Washington Examiner put this article out. I don't know what year they wrote this article. August 6, 2024. Overruled: how Bobby Unser became a federal convict. As the close of the Supreme Court's last term, Justice Neil Gorsuch concurred in the court's 6-3 decision disregarding the 40-year-old Chevron doctrine, which required Article III judges to defer to federal judges when Congress's statutory language is ambiguous. Okay, goes on from there. And I want to come on down here. All right. One of the stories related by Gorsuch is that of my former client, famed New Mexico race car driver Bobby Unser of Albuquerque. Now, see, I remember when this happened. Unser, you're going to remember it too. Unser, 63 years old and 3-time Indy 500 winner on a beautifully clear December day in 1996, went for a snowmobile ride in a national forest in southern Colorado. When a dangerous blizzard swept down upon Bobby and his friend, they were in deadly peril. Quickly, they became disoriented and then lost as they struggled to find their way to safety. Eventually, they made it to civilization, but not before they abandoned their snowmobiles in the deepening snow, spent the night shivering in a hastily carved snow cave, and hiked out of the natural forest through waist-deep snow for 18 hours. They nearly died. Although Bobby's safety was assured, his legal peril was just beginning. The Clinton administration charged him criminally with operating a snowmobile in a federal wilderness area. He faced 6 months in jail. I argued Bobby had not been in the federal wilderness area, but if he were, he was there out of necessity or because of an emergency. That is, he had no intention of being within the federal wilderness area, an element of the crime. Federal prosecutors insisted that despoiling a wilderness was a public welfare offense, which required no proof of criminal intent. A federal district court agreed, and Bobby was convicted without proof of criminal intent. Later, a 3-judge panel in the U.S. Supreme Court of Appeals, U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit rejected my arguments that Bobby was neither in the area nor possessed criminal intent. In fact, the panel held it was up to Bobby, not the Forest Service, to prove he was where he was during the blizzard. Finally, on the first Monday of October in 1999, Supreme Court denied Bobby's petition. Gorsuch discusses the federal government's criminal case against Bobby, who died in May of 2021 at the age of 87, to make several points, including in passing the power of the federal government to wage legal warfare against its citizens. It spent $1 million to brand him a criminal and secure a $75 fine. I remember this. I remember, and I think you and I even talked about it back in 1996.
That's possible.
This is the stupidity of the kind of thing we're talking about. And don't think that that can't be done in huge swaths of the country with these biospheres. True?
Absolutely. And even under the 30 by 30, there has been talk of literally locking away our national parks from human activity in some cases. I mean, that's just how far it goes. And we've been fighting this for many decades, what they've done to the timber industry, where, they stop them from even cleaning dead trees out of the bottom of the forest. And I remember back in the 90s, former Congresswoman Helen Chenoweth took a delegation from Congress into the forest there in Oregon and showed them they had 10 feet of kindling on the floor of the forest. These were dead trees that had been there. And it was so thick that many times even small animals couldn't get through. But they were told, oh, this is natural. This is the reason why we have these massive, hot, burning fires in the forests today that we didn't used to have, because of these kinds of things. That human beings are not allowed to be there and do anything in these forests, even clean them out and try to keep them in good shape.
Let's see here. Let's go to one more article you've got. Hey, Logan, someone come and grab this. I think it's my next guest. One more here. Supreme Court rules Utah doesn't have a right to its own land. Talk about this in closing.
Yeah, this is they've been trying in Utah and other states, and west of the Mississippi, states are much more owned by the federal government than on the other side of the Mississippi, where 97% of our land is privately owned on one side. On the other side, it's the other way around, and the government is running it. The state of Utah has been running a legal campaign to try to free up about 18 million acres that make it more private for owned by the state of Utah instead of the federal government. And they have been shut down in trying to do that. The Supreme Court said, nope, can't do that. And the whole point here on all of this, Brannon, is property rights. Mm-hmm. Trying to own your own personal property, control it, own it, do what you want to do with it. This is what is being wiped out. And it all goes back to sustainable development. Right. Sustainable development cannot be imposed if property rights are protected. And so if you look at your comprehensive plan in your own community, I challenge people all the time, look for one single word in there about protection of property rights. Doesn't exist. And what we're seeing, these regional councils that are not elected by anybody are dictating to your elected officials. They are literally wiping out our ability to vote for whom we want, to run our community the way we want it to be run. And these people who are not elected to anything come in and start dictating. This is a result of it.
Yep, absolutely. So we're going to come back now full circle. I want to bring back up that map I sent you. We're going to come back full circle on this map here, because this is what we're saying. We're saying that this is a real possibility, that the idea of 11 U.S. mega regions and basically, pushing everybody into government ghettos, right? And smart cities where everything is digital and regulated. And then what if you can even get on an airplane, and how many times a year they'll let you get on an airplane? I mean, their goal is openly stated to tag every one of us. It's a part of Agenda 2030. We're moving there with digital IDs, and now they can fine you if you go outside your town more than you should. If you eat more meat than they want you to eat. If you get on too many airplanes in a given year, your quota's up. I'm sorry. I mean, this is where we're headed if we let these environmental Marxist fascists do this, right?
Yeah, and what's really important here is we now have we're seeing the Doge situation and what they're exposing and what the Trump administration is doing. And my greatest fear is that so many people say, oh, good, they're taking care of everything. We don't have to do anything more. That is absolutely the opposite, the wrong way to go on that, because first of all, just back in October of this past year, before the election, the World Economic Forum held a conference in San Francisco. And the point of that was they knew that Trump was going to win. They knew he was going to cause them problems at the federal level. And so what's our strategy? Go to the local level and put these things in place. And that is what they're doing. That is what this plan is designed to do, in the local level instead of the federal. And keep pushing this agenda. The agenda has nothing to do with protecting the environment. It has nothing to do with improving your life. It has to do with controlling a global agenda and putting it all in place. And that's what we're seeing them do step by step. And that's where we have got to now organize locally in your community to stand up to it, because you're going to find, you try to talk to your city councilman and so forth, and they're going to say to you, well, that's just the way it's done now. There's nothing we can do about it. This appointed board says we've got to do this way. And that has got to be changed. They have got to be pressured to represent you, or why don't we save a lot of tax dollars and get rid of all these local governments, because they're already being run by these regional councils, which is this side of communism.
Absolutely. Yep. Tom DeWeese, AmericanPolicy.org, AmericanPolicy.org. As always, thank you, Tom.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks, Brannon.
Tom DeWeese checking in. Check out his site, AmericanPolicy.org. All right, join me now is Dr. Lana. We're going to start doing some health segments with her about once a week. per our schedules, but we're sure going to give it the old college try. I want to play first a video of RFK Jr., a video he put out this week. Let's talk about some of the progress he's making and some other news stories as well. Here's RFK Jr.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm the Secretary for the Department of Health and Human Services. In the final months of the election, President Trump repeatedly called for removing toxins from our food supply. He added his voice to the millions of Maha moms who were touting the Make America Healthy Again agenda. The first step is radical transparency, because right now, not even the U.S. government knows what's in our food. In 1958, the government created a designation called Generally Recognized as Safe, or GRAS, so that we can make common ingredients like salt and baking soda exempt from testing. But today, it isn't just salt and baking soda. Food companies and cooperative regulators have enlarged the GRAS exemption so that these companies can decide for themselves whether a substance is generally recognized as safe. No FDA approval is needed. European nations, on the other hand, require that a chemical be proven safe before it becomes a food ingredient. In our country, the GRAS standard means that every chemical is presumed safe until proven dangerous, and that proof might not happen until millions of Americans are sick with chronic disease. This mass experiment on the American population with GRAS has, in short, been a catastrophe. We now have around 10,000 chemicals in our food, while Europe has only 400. For example, titanium dioxide, potentially linked to DNA damage and cancer, is banned in the EU, but it's in our children's food. Potassium bromate, a suspected carcinogen, banned in Europe and Japan. And you guessed it, it's in our children's bread. Food dyes such as red dye 40 and yellow 5 and 6 come with warning labels in Europe. They're linked to behavioral issues in children, but in the US, they're generally recognized as safe. I can't really blame the food companies. They're just doing what we've allowed them to get away with in a system that's taken on a life of its own. We all agree now that it's time to change the system, and that's exactly what we're going to do. I am today directing the FDA commissioner to start the process of changing the rules to eliminate the self-affirming GRAS pathway for new ingredients. I'm also directing the FDA and NIH to ramp up post-market assessments of GRAS chemicals currently in our food so that we can rapidly identify the compounds that are making Americans so sick, and so that American consumers and regulators can make informed decisions.
All right, let's hold it right there. Wow. Think about all the government regulation that we all have to deal with, right? I mean, there's so much government regulation and so many things we have to comply with, the average citizen. Just from a tax situation alone, I have to have an employee or person working with us probably 20 hours a week just to comply with all the regulations from the IRS, right? And then I have to have an accountant and a tax attorney. And I think, and I was looking at my bills the other day, and I'm thinking, I got all these regulations I've got to comply with. But yet humongous corporations that make billions of dollars, they get a free pass, no regulation, and yet toxins are going into the food that may be killing us, causing cancer and other neurological problems. And I am so thankful for RFK Jr. in this video. What say you?
Oh, absolutely. Thank God for him. And you know what, Brannon? I have patient after patient, and it comes back to when I listen to their symptoms, and it can be a diagnosis where they have to put their life on hold and their health becomes their number one priority, or it could be something like blood sugar or cholesterol or, things that are more common. And when I explain that it's not their fault, they're so relieved, because the toxic load today is unlike anything we've ever seen in the history of mankind. It's why our children are becoming the fastest growing obese population in this country. It's why 75% of the people are walking around overweight, and 86% of the doctor's visits are for chronic degenerative diseases that are reversible. And once you start removing the toxins from someone's body and you start giving them nutrition they can finally get in their cells, they start to feel better. Their symptoms go away and they get healthier because their body can balance. This toxic load that's in our food has been unchecked for decades. And finally, it's going to be put under the microscope. And every mom, every dad, every person that I've talked to since he became the secretary in the Trump administration is just thrilled. It's just absolutely thrilled.
Yeah, I bet they are. And now we're also hearing that, here it is right here, after meeting with CEOs of top infant formula manufacturers today, Secretary Kennedy and the U.S. FDA announced Operation Stork Speed to expand options for safe, reliable, and nutritious infant formula for American families. I mean, why would any company produce formula for children that wasn't safe? I mean, these people aren't stupid. They know what the ingredients are going into their product. They have scientists that can look under a microscope and evaluate what's going on. I mean, is it greed? You know, money is not the root of all evil, the love of money. But the fact is you got to call the heads of CEOs of top infant formula manufacturers in to have a conversation, it's just ridiculous. I mean, not ridiculous on RFK's part. It's ridiculous on the manufacturer's part. Why do people just not have common sense and sensitivity toward mothers and children that are just trying to do their best and raise a healthy child?
I educate so many expectant moms, like grandmothers and moms, mother-daughter teams, moms that have just had babies or moms that are soon to deliver, about how to talk with the pediatricians, how to talk with the hospital staff. I empower them so they know they're in charge. They're in charge of their body. They're in charge of their baby, their unborn baby, their newborn baby. The doctors and the hospital staff are not in charge. And so many innocent moms that have just delivered, maybe, they're tired and they have a new baby. And so maybe the initial steps to breastfeed have not been so easy for that woman, and nobody's worked with her. So she's like, I'll just do the formula, because they are bombarded in the hospitals with hospital staff saying, oh my gosh, this is so much easier. Here's the formula. And you think you're giving this right to an infant, that it's healthy and it's safe. You're absolutely right. This ingredient list that is in infant formula is jaw-dropping. It is so upsetting. And it's not the mom's fault. It's not the parent's fault. This is what's gone on for years and years and years. It's gone unchecked. And you innocently hear about the babies that they have colic and they're not sleeping. And then this goes on for months and months. And then that baby who becomes a toddler is put on more pharmaceutical drugs because they're not sleeping and they're crying and then they're misbehaving. And it moves that new baby to a toddler and then a kindergartner and a first grader that is now a customer in the medical industry, because they started on that baby formula that was full of really unsafe, unhealthy ingredients. It's unbelievable. In our country that this has gone on for years.
Yep. It's ridiculous. And I think it comes down to greed. What do you think it comes down to?
No, absolutely. And you could put fillers and all kind of other ingredients in infant formula and just, increase the profitability. And then you play on the mother's emotions. And instead of educating and empowering her, and if there is a scenario for whatever reason, that mom doesn't want to breastfeed or can't or what have you, that when she chooses a formula, it is completely safe for her infant. It's terrible.
Let's talk a little bit about what, the Roundup and glyphosate and all that kind of stuff, right? So my wife has really bad gluten allergies, right? I have a twin sister that has celiac disease. Goes from gluten allergies to celiac disease, full blown, right? Logan just today said, I've got this rash on my side that won't quit itching. He says it to his mother, and I'm standing there, and she's like, well, let me see it. And she says, Logan, That's gluten allergy. That's exactly what I had forever. If you get a hold of any gluten, you start itching. You can't quit. You can't quit. You can't quit. So obviously some of this has got to be hereditary or something. I don't know what, or maybe, again, he's just gotten into too much Roundup or, glyphosate in the food. But he's having the same, or he has the same sensitivity as his mother has. Because, see, I don't have this sensitivity. She does. She can be very sensitive to a lot of different things. We have to be very careful with what she gets a hold of. But now he's got this rash, and it's driving him nuts. And she just informed him, well, this is what I had. You likely have a gluten allergy. Now, I understand that people go over to Europe that have this problem and eat bread, and they don't break out in a rash and start scratching. Is this true, or is that made up?
Oh, absolutely. It's true. And your wife is so spot on, so intelligent and savvy as always, Melissa is. And, I'm a digestive health specialist. So issues of the skin stem from the gut, everyone. It's from an unbalanced gut microbiome. So you need a really good pro and prebiotic. And you're right, you have to back away from the gluten. And it is because you brought up a great point about the United States and Europe. We are glyphosate, Roundup, weed killer, that pesticide has been sprayed all over food in many countries since the 1970s. You can't wash glyphosate off your food. You can't cook glyphosate out of your food. It gets in the cells of the food. So it's really pervasive, and it absolutely causes unbalanced gut microbiome. You need really good, like I said, pro and prebiotic, and you've got to stay away from the gluten. However, it's sprayed on a lot of other foods. And you go over to Europe, and this is a personal story. My daughter was blessed to be in Europe 2 years ago on an architecture trip with the university. And she said, Mom, I can eat this, I can eat that, and I feel great. And she walked around, she was in 15 cities and 5 countries and never had a gut issue, not bloat, not itchy skin, nothing, because there is a completely different set of rules for the food that their people are eating, that the Europeans are eating, versus the set of rules that are laid out in the United States for Americans. And it is absolutely a fact.
Well, we just heard from
even
RFK.
though the glyphosate spray, in Europe, their strict rules about food ingredients keep them safer, and they don't have adverse reactions when they eat.
RFK Jr., did we just hear him say in that video, we have like 10,000 ingredients in our food that shouldn't be there, and over in Europe they only have 400 of those. So
right.
they've gotten rid of, what is that, 9,600, and only have 400 that they still, I guess, need to work on. We have all 10,000 in our food that should be gotten rid of.
And the war on cancer has been a miserable failure. President Nixon started the war on cancer in the 1970s. It has been a miserable failure, and we are the wealthiest. We're the leaders of the free world, right? This is the United States of America. It's really unbelievable if you sit back and think about it. We are the sickest nation. Our children are sicker than other children on earth. It's really
Well, there's no desire, in my opinion. In my opinion, there's no desire to cure cancer by most of these groups. Why would you cure something that makes you so much money? Why would you cure something when you get paid to study to cure it? I mean, how long have they been studying how to cure cancer? And I don't know that we're any better now than we were 20 years ago, but a lot of people sure make money studying cancer, I think, and make a lot of money treating cancer. And yet, I'm going to go to this article headline, because we showed this the other day. This is July 6, 2005. July 6, 2005. And this is Tom Harper. Man figures plankton stopped his rare cancer. We talked about this. Now, you can talk about this. You can talk about glutathione. You can talk about all kinds of things that you can do to help use food as medicine. And yet, most doctors don't talk about this. They don't even know about it. They don't study nutrition, but maybe 1 or 2 days in medical school. Everything else is, prescribe a pill. So we got more of a response from our viewers than anything else you and I have ever discussed. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why, because we're not making any health claims. We're not saying it's the Gatatana. We're not saying the Gatatana that you can get on Melissa's site. We're not saying this heals anything. What happened was Tom Harper 20 years ago, just intuitively, he had mesothelioma, deadly lung cancer, was given weeks to live. And he just intuitively started to eat the phytoplankton out of his fish tanks because he fed the phytoplankton to his shellfish. He was a shellfish farmer in the Pacific Northwest in Vancouver Island. And when he went in for the surgery, the talc treatment to really help prolong his life, after eating this for weeks, just about a teaspoon, he ate every day intuitively, and it wasn't this, it was literally the phytoplankton out of the tank. The surgeon came out of the operating room and told his family, I have not ever seen anything like it. We sent 11 sites to pathology, and your father's tumor sites they're benign. The cancer is benign, and Tom Harper lived for years. He retired in Hawaii. We're not making any claims, and so you can look up the newspaper article.
In fact, here he is in his own words. This is what we played, and you got swamped, you told us, with bigger response than anything. All right?
Absolutely.
Here it is. Here it is.
Started on a daily routine of just taking a bit of paste, putting it in my mouth, and wash it down with a drink of water, and go about my daily business, what I could do. And within about 10 to 15 days, here I am, starting to less pain in my back. I knew that something was going on, so I just kept eating half a teaspoon of this paste a day. I was booked to go for surgery in Victoria, where they're going to do what they call a talc treatment, and they take a medical grade talcum powder, they introduce it into between your lungs and your pleural lining, and keep you in the hospital for a few days. And that there causes your lungs to fuse together, and it stops you from drowning in your own fluids that are built up.
The head surgeon came out and had a very odd look on his face. I said to my mom, oh my God, something's happened. My dad's died. And I was just shaking and panicking, and the surgeon came up to me and he said, I don't know what's going on here, but there's a strange foreign white substance covering your dad's tumors in his lungs, and we've never seen anything like it before.
Well, lo and behold, they went in there to have a look, saw something they never seen before, took 11 sites, sent them away for biopsy, and I got the news back. Everything was benign. They just did not know what to make of it. Everything was absolutely clean. Well, the surgeons are saying that they don't know what I had. They don't know if what I created and am taking had any effect on the cancer. All they can tell me is they've never seen what they saw inside of me, and I attribute this to my algae. I fully believe that with all my heart. I do moderate exercise every day. I watch what I eat. I lead a very normal life. And as a bonus, I've lost weight and I've tried dieting all my life because I'm a diabetic, or I was a diabetic. If it's a coincidence or not, I don't know. But anyway, my blood sugar started dropping. My weight started falling off. And I ended up probably within about a 6-month period, here I am no longer requiring insulin, and I was taking 88 units a day of insulin. And I now can eat just about what I want in moderation, and I have no elevated sugar levels, and I feel fabulous.
The potential benefits.
So he went on to eventually retire and live another 10 years in Hawaii, right?
Absolutely. Lived a long life, retired in Hawaii. And, it makes so much sense because people, you hear the word cancer and they want you to be instilled with fear. Cancer is nothing. I do crucial care consultations all the time. I study with 2 of the foremost cancer experts in the world. And I can tell you all that cancer is nothing but a profound failure of the immune system. And what happened with Tom Harper is the phytoplankton is microscopic. It's God's microscopic microscopic food. I mean, the Gatatana is the most nutritionally comprehensive strain of phytoplankton in the world. David Hunter studied phytoplankton for 20 years because he worked for Tom Harper and he was there in person and witnessed Tom's recovery. So it's about getting pure nutrition inside your cells to fuel your mitochondria. And what happens, your body balances again or goes back to homeostasis. And when your body is pH balanced or in homeostasis, disease can't grow. So Tom Harper just went back intuitively to eating like God's perfect microscopic food. And there's no contraindications at all with the Gatatana, with the phytoplankton. It is literally microscopic, pure single-cell plant food with protein and omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids, with amino acids and vitamins and minerals. We have so many symptoms, Brannon and anyone, because we are deficient in trace minerals. This is full of trace minerals. And I help people with specific protocols with this, but the average bear, let me tell you, can take, 1 scoop a day. There's 90 billion plant cells in here, just for everyday nutrition and energy and, cognitive support, because this is God's pure nutrition. So anyone can take it, but I do consultations for more specific, protocols, but it has been a jaw-dropping story. So much so, David Hunter, who runs Global Phytoplankton Alliance, he dedicated his entire life to studying phytoplankton because he was there 20 years ago and worked for Tom Harper at that sea farm. And he witnessed people coming in droves to get that phytoplankton after that newspaper article. And then he developed, the Gatatana and sold it for 12 years in Canada. And hundreds of thousands of human beings in Canada took this for 12 years. And as God would have it, he saw me. I did a talk. We met months ago, and he said, we have got to get this Gatatana in the United States of America. Hey, Lana, Dr. Lana, will you help me do that? And I said, I would be honored. This is God's food. So that's the story there. And we're here.
And when people saw this, they flooded you. What were they asking? You said you got more response from the last time we talked about that than anything else we've ever done. What were they asking you?
They were, first of all, they were like, okay, I saw you on Brannon, and where do I go? And I was sending messages, Melissa Howse, GPA.com, Melissa Howse, GPA.com. And I said, listen, they wanted to know, first of all, I know a lot of people innocently, will this help my blood sugar? Will this help my high blood pressure? Will this help my high cholesterol? We can't make claims on specific diseases, but they were all saying so-and-so was diagnosed with this cancer or that cancer. It was a family member or themselves diagnosed with this or that type of cancer. And they were so curious to know how they could take steps naturally to help that. So without making any health claims, I explained to them really giving a summary of what I just said of when you can get pure nutrition, here's the kicker, inside the cell membrane to fuel your mitochondria, which is a battery of your cells, then the body can start to operate normally and start to go into balance, and disease will not grow. And this Gatatana, my friends, is 1.2 microns, and that may not mean anything to you, but a human cell is about 10 to 40 microns. Okay, so you can certainly fit 1.2 gallons of water in a 10 to 40 empty gallon tank, right? So this is 1.2 microns, and your cells are about 10 to 40 microns. This gets inside your cells. So you're getting God's pure, comprehensive nutrition inside your cells. So your cells can start to function optimally, and the body goes back to homeostasis and fights disease. So I wanted to know what to do.
Melissa brings it to me almost every night at the desk. Dolly takes it, okay, half a scoop a day on her food, half a scoop for her. So now that I've been sitting here drinking this, tell our audience what's going on right now. Now that I've taken this, what's going on in my body right now due to this? What's happening?
In seconds, comprehensive nutrition. I said amino acids, trace minerals, vitamins, omega-3 fatty acids, protein is quickly going in through your bloodstream, in through your cell membranes, inside your cells to basically bathe the inside of your cells and bathe the battery powerhouse of your cells with really God's perfect nutrition. So now the cells are like, I have energy. I can make energy. I can fight illness. I can fight disease. I can help fuel your brain. I can help filter your liver. I can help every cell in your body from head to toe begin to function normally. And guess what? Here's the beautiful thing. There's no contraindications. There is no contraindications like this because this is food. This is microscopic, pure, unadulterated food. Man did not make this. Now, David Hunter's company dried it and powdered it so we could consume it. But nothing is added to this. This is just like it is grown in pure, beautiful seawater, filtered seawater, off the coast of Spain, sent over here to the United States, put together in this, container so we can consume it. But you don't have to worry about a thing. If you're on medication, you're not on medication. If you are older, this is great. If you have aging parents, this is great. If you work out and you're an athlete, it's great. If you're a first responder, you're a busy parent, or you're a busy professional. And I can say this as a mom, I have to legally say, in the United States, you have to tell everybody they need to be over 18 to take anything. Talking as a mom, now, my daughter's in grad school. She doesn't miss a day of this. Sometimes she'll take it twice a day if she has a busy project at school at the university. If I had a child, this is me speaking as a mom, not as a doctor. If I had a child going to kindergarten or going to first grade, let me tell you something. I would hide this in a little plant-based yogurt or a little, whatever they like to eat in the morning, a scoop of their, oatmeal and play a little game with it. Put it in a couple ounces of coconut water or something that tastes good like that Bay low sugar, blueberry water, raspberry water. And I'd play a game with them. So they shot it down in a couple ounces of coconut water or low sugar, Bay's blueberry water, what have you, every single day before they went to school. That's me as a mom. My daughter's an adult, but I can tell you she never, ever misses a day of it. I have not ever seen people respond like this after that show, Brannon. They're like, I have this, or my spouse or my brother or my sister is diagnosed with this, how can this help? That was the number one question. And it helps balance the body again. It pulls the body back into homeostasis because you're feeding the inside of your cells, you're feeding the mitochondria with pure, pristine, clean, plant-based nutrition.
Wow. So Melissa Howse, what happened, guys? Melissa Howse, GPA.com, MelissaHowseGPA.com. Get a subscription, folks. Get a subscription so you don't have to worry about it not showing up. And by the way, I do give half a scoop every morning on her food. Dolly gets a half a scoop of this. Logan, can you ask your mom what kind of food I have Dolly on right now, will you? Ask her what I've taken, she's 10 months old. Let's go to the Dolly cam. She's 10 months old, and I've had, she's lab number 6. Lab number 6. You just saw her jumping up on me a while ago. And I don't want her getting cancer. Most of my labs die of cancer. And so I'm putting half a scoop on her food. She gets pumpkin. She gets pumpkin every day. She knows the word pumpkin. Every morning I sit at my desk and I have a cup of coffee. And then my wife will bring me a banana with peanut butter. And Dolly and I share a banana and peanut butter every morning. It's a routine. She sits right there at my feet under my desk. And we have our morning banana and peanut butter while I drink my coffee and read the news. And she, as I said, she gets some pumpkin and she gets her Gatatana. Now, I had her on a puppy food, Red Diamond puppy food, which was about the best we could find, we thought, for what she needs as a puppy. But we've now moved her off of that and onto a vegan dog food that Melissa and another lady have researched extensively. And she has an older dog And once they got their older dog on this vegan food a couple years ago, the dog like popped up. You know, it is older. It's doing amazing. So I've now got Dolly on this vegan food, and then the audience is going to ask us what it is. So I'm trying to find out from Logan. But I put that half a scoop of Gataton on her food every morning. So that's what I'm doing to try to give her the antioxidants to fight, you know, the free radicals. And we know what the free radicals do.
I'll tell you a quick story, everyone, a dog story about Gatatana. Total story, so not making any claims, and I'm not a veterinarian, as you know, but I worked with a man who had a boxer, and it wasn't that old, and the boxer had malignant tumors throughout his body. And you're right, animals die cancer like humans do. It's terrible. And so what this man did, and he told me in his own words, he put a whole scoop every day of Gatatana sprinkled on his dog's food. Now, mind you, the dog had malignant tumors. So a whole scoop of Gatatana every single day, because you know how much you love your pets. And that dog today, 14 months later, is running around without malignant tumors. And it's just an innocent dog story, but that is exactly what he told me in his own words, a scoop of actual Gatatana every single day. And he still does. And it was because the dog had to make health. He had to make his dog's health number one priority. I've heard story after story. I have a friend, a patient's adult daughter. Her 18-year-old terrier was dying in her arms, and the vet wanted to put it down. And she said no. She just intuitively, she says, no, I'm taking my dog home. And the vet thought she was crazy. And she took a syringe, and I'll tell you, true story. She filled the syringe up with glutathione swish and a scoop of Gatatana.
Wow.
And gave it to her 18-month-old terrier. And she gave it the glutathione every hour on the hour that first day. But once a day, that little terrier gets a scoop of regular Gatatana because it's 18 years old. Do you know that was 4.5 months ago? That 18-year-old terrier, it was dying of end-stage acute kidney failure. That little 18-year-old terrier, Brannon, it is running around her yard. It's gained 2 pounds. She says, I don't know what I'm going to do with him. Like, he's running around the yard. He's eating like a pig. And she saved her dog's life with a syringe of the glutathione swish every hour. And one time during the day, it was a scoop of regular Gatatana because of the dog's age. And the dog
absolutely believe it. Absolutely believe it. Now, I want to go to something else real quick that might fascinate the audience, and I get to play a video of my granddaughter. Oh. Now, you know my daughter. You and I have talked about what my daughter was eating while she was pregnant, right?
I don't remember those details.
Oh, really? Okay. Who was it I was interviewing, Logan? We were talking about all the things that Libby was taking. But anyway, here's what she was taking when she was pregnant with my granddaughter. At least 4 pasteurized organic eggs a day, salmon and omega-3 on top of the prenatal. These are pasteurized, raised organic eggs, wild salmon. Both eggs and the salmon have tons of DHA and choline, and I don't know if that means choline or collagen, in them for the brain development. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts there?
Well, while you're pregnant and you want to make sure it's like wild caught, so she was absolutely on the right highway of eating.
And I think the word is choline, CHOLINE, is that right?
Yes, choline for the brain. Right. Okay. Right. You need that to make the brain start to function and
cognitive function and potentially protecting against neural tube defects by contributing to proper cell membrane formation and neurotransmitter production. Most pregnant women do not get enough of this. My daughter was texting me.
Yes. And they need, pregnant women, for the choline, you need B12, and B vitamins. There is B12, trace minerals. I'm telling you, she was on task there. B12 is extremely important to prevent neural tube defects and all of that, spinal cord defects, neural defects of the brain for the baby. So omega-3s and honestly, I would, if I was, again, a mom and I was expecting, there's not a day that I wouldn't take the Gatatana. It's nutrition. There's not a day that I would do the glutathione as well. And your omega-3s, you've got to have that for, and again, I'm not telling any expectant moms what to do, but I'm saying if I was pregnant again, that's exactly what I would do.
So my granddaughter's 8 months old. 8 months old. Okay? Not 2 years, not a year and a half, 8 months old. Are you ready for this video to see what my granddaughter is doing this week?
I can't wait.
Okay, here we go. Okay. My wife's like, Brannon, 8-month-old babies don't usually sit up like that and use both hands like that at 8 months. So I don't know. Maybe she's just, a prodigy. I don't know. But my daughter says that she has friends that have children this age. They don't do squat. And this child has been trying to roll over so early, lift her head up so early, doing everything advanced, pulling up on the side of the crib and standing up, crawling, going to be walking soon, doing everything way ahead of schedule. When she gets together with other people with like children, she's like, their kids just lay there. And my daughter is trying to interact with them and they're like oblivious. And she's like, my daughter is not at the same level as kids her own age. And my wife, has had 3 children and medical social worker background. So she's been around a lot of children. And she said, this is not typical of 8-month-old children. I mean, I don't know. This is not my area of expertise. My daughter's convinced that it has to do with all the things she was doing because she was trying for brain and neurological development while she was pregnant. She thinks this is largely due to that. What say you?
No, absolutely. And the omega 3 is huge. B12 is huge, and the organic eggs, and absolutely. No, it's really important. And we hopefully with RFK Jr. circling back there that we educate women that want to get pregnant, women that are trying to get pregnant, women that are pregnant. And it actually, I'll tell you, your daughter was so savvy as well. I'm not surprised. So God bless. But I will share with you, and a lot of people are so surprised. Ladies, young couples out there in America that want to start a family, it is most important before you get pregnant to get your nutrition right. So all of you mothers and mother-in-laws out there that want grandchildren and fathers and father-in-laws, I am telling you, you're right. If you've got organic eggs, in your diet, whole food, whole vegetables, whole fruits, oh my word, start on, your Gatatana and your glutathione. It starts before you get pregnant. Your nutrition is actually most important then. And what Brannon's daughter did is so smart. She focused on the brain and the glutathione. Absolutely. Your liver and your brain desperately need glutathione. And we start losing glutathione at age 20. And you have 5G is taking away our glutathione. Pesticides are taking away our glutathione. Forever chemicals in our cookware and clothes are taking away and lowering our glutathione. This is the fastest, most affordable way to put glutathione back in your cells every single day. I always say that these aren't supplements. They're a necessity. It's not another supplement. It's literally a necessity for life.
Now we switched over to, guys, you want to put that lower third up there, swishforlife.com. Put that one up there if you would. And then let's go back to that graphic. So glutathione benefits, it increases energy, slows down the aging process. Hello, I like that one. Reduces muscle and joint discomfort, strengthens your immune system, detoxes the liver and cells, improves mental focus and clarity, improves quality of sleep, reduces the effects of stress, improves the skin and athletic performance and recovery. Can I tell you, Dr. Lana, as we get ready to wrap here, my wife is susceptible to sinus infections. She fights a sinus infection about 2 or 3 times a year. So she has this puffiness under her eye this week and this swollenness under her eye from her sinuses, right? got really bad headache. He's feeling not very well at all. But I said, well, you know what Dr. Lana says? If you're sick, swish every hour on the hour. So she started swishing with the glutathione big time.
Yeah.
And in the course of 24 hours, swelling went down, pain went away. And she said, I have no other answer for that than the glutathione. She said, do you really think that's what it was? I said, well, it detoxes your cell and fights infection, I think. So sometimes when she gets these, she has to go and get on one of our antibiotics from the wellness company. We keep antibiotics on hand through the wellness company. And so she'll have to crack out the kit and get on an antibiotic to get rid of it. Not this time. She did the glutathione just routinely throughout the day.
I tell everybody, get a Sharpie pen and write the date that you received it on the bottom. And you've got to have 2 bottles per person on the shelf for your family. I call it New Me 911. If you get a cold, if you get a virus, if you get the flu, if you get a sinus infection, bad headaches, you need the plastic cap, one of these every hour on the hour. Just swish 3 to 4 minutes. You can spit it out. Every hour on the hour that you're awake for a couple of days, you are going to go through a couple of bottles. But you take it down off your shelf and then you consume those, but you always have 2 extra in case somebody in your family gets sick. And you just keep taking those down and consume them. When you get the new bottle, you write the date and you put those on the shelf, take the old ones down. The shelf life on this unopened is 2 years. So you can keep them sealed for 2 years and you just keep rotating them, but you always have 2 extra bottles in case somebody gets sick, because you're going to take a capful, swish 3 to 4 minutes every hour on the hour for a couple of days if you get sick. Absolutely. It is the biggest, best secret, and it's God's molecule as well. We are losing glutathione every day, and this is the fastest way to put it back in your body.
Amazing. All right, let me ask you this in closing, Doc. I am prone to canker sores on the back of my tongue. And there are nights on television, I don't mention it. There are nights on television where talking hurts so bad. It just hurts to talk. It takes energy to talk. It hurts so bad because my canker sores are so bad on the back of my tongue or under my tongue. And so I started swishing with the glutathione as soon as I feel one coming on, and generally it's been knocking them out before they get to the point where they're so bad that they get those big old white crater. I end up you put alum on it. Alum, like you pickle pickles with on it. It burns like a son of a gun, but it knocks it down. But when I feel them coming on, I swish more with this. Any thoughts on why am I prone to such bad canker sores?
You probably got a little acidity, so you want more greens. You want more vegetables. You want to lean more plant-based. I don't want to say vegan like the dog food, but I can see why those dogs were getting healthier and healthier, because too much animal protein. It's not that we have to be vegan, but too much animal protein. Protein from animals is hard to break down, and it creates an acidic environment in the body. It's tough on the kidneys, tough on our blood vessels. So if you can do more dinners that are plant-based, and maybe like 3 dinners or 4 dinners with your animal protein, and more lunches and dinners that are plant-based, that also helps balance your pH. More greens, more plants, more whole foods, and just kind of pull back a little bit of the animal protein. And maybe next time I'll tell you a story of unbelievable brain health with the Numi glutathione and the neuro product. I'm certified at the American Brain Council and work with the director of education there. And I talked to a lady yesterday after patients that has just, it's an unbelievable story of her adult daughter that basically came home to die at Christmas time. And here it is in, March of 2025. And it is a jaw-dropping story that involved, the Numi glutathione and the Numi neuro swish. But yes, so you'll help balance your body with a little more plants and a little bit less animals, Brannon.
There you go. All right. SquishForLife.com, MelissaHouseGPA.com. You'll find it all at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. And as always, Doc, your website is inspiredbywellness.com. We're looking forward to having you as a keynote speaker at our national conference coming up this October here in the Mid-South.
I cannot wait. It will be my honor to be there.
Looking forward to having you. Dr. Lana checking in, folks. Again, check out all these products at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Great way to support us and your health at the same time. Go to the Dolly Cam. This is fully Dolly approved, and you can tell she's extremely excited about this broadcast tonight. Extremely excited, very enthusiastic about this topic. Give it a minute. She'll wake up and she'll come right back to life and be trying to chew up my calendar like she did the other night. Well, there you go. All right, folks, what a broadcast tonight, full of content. And we'll put it all up for you at worldviewtube.com tomorrow, worldviewtube.com. Let me take you over here. Go to Worldview Times, or you can just go under news. We have Worldview Radio, Worldview Tube, Worldview Times. Here is, folks, an article, The Trojan Horse Within Christian Media. We are turning so many of these shows into great articles, and I hope you'll check them out. Send them around to your family and friends. And by the way, go to worldviewstore.com and get your pack of 20 business cards. How many thousands of these have gone out now, Caleb? What are we on? We're over 9,000 now? Over 9,000 of these business cards have now gone out. So check that out. Worldviewstore.com. Get your pack of 20 absolutely free. Help us grow. We get more people informed, we get more donors, and many hands make light work, right? So if you're like, I really want to see more people watch and support him, because if we get more people to watch, I think more people will support what he's doing, and then it'll all be taken care of. So you're right. So we want to inform a lot of people, educate a lot of people. It's a battle for hearts and minds. Those people come on board, they watch, they're like, I like what this network's doing. Let me help out. That brings in more people that are educated, but also more people that can support us. So again, many hands make light work. So everybody wins as we keep this network going 24/7. So get your free packet of business cards free to pass out, and then you run out, get another pack of 20. Worldviewstore.com. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. What do you think, Dolly? Are you ready to call it a night? I don't know. You're not going to jump up on me tonight, are you? You want to come here and say goodnight to everybody? Come on up. Come on up. You want to come up? Come on. What are you being so shy about? You're not even going to come up here. I got business cards. You love to chew on the business cards. You're not even coming up tonight, are you? Well, she's being very timid. All right. Well, there you go. What a show. Don't forget, we're coming to Milwaukee April 15th. Full details at worldviewtube.com/events. It's free, brought to you by our foundation. We'll take an offering to offset all the costs of bringing in the speakers and renting the building. It's free, but you got to have a ticket. worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. All right? Spread the word about that. Let's have as many people there as possible. Haven't done a Worldview Weekend Rally in 7 years, so let's pack it out, all right? Hey, thanks for watching. Till next time, I'm Brannon Howse. May God save America. Take care. We're not changing courses now. We are who we are. We're committed to the truth that we are committed to. Worldview Tube is a broadcast network that I started in 2006, but it's based on my 35 years as an author and speaker and commentator. Worldview Tube is here to defend the truth of a Christian worldview. And we believe we can apply it to all areas of life, like law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, major issues.
At worldviewtube.com, we provide news from around the globe that isn't typically covered by mainstream media. Visit worldviewtube.com to watch our experts and analysts discuss all your favorite topics on our 24/7 live stream. Explore our extensive collection of unfiltered and uncensored content from 35 years of production. Go to worldviewtube.com today. Also find us on all of these major platforms and download our Worldview Tube mobile app.
Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon Howse.
All right, welcome. Glad you guys are with us. We've got a lot of news to get to today. This is going to be a very busy news day. We are expecting 80,000 documents to come out related to the murder of President John F. Kennedy. Of course, we'll be on it. We've already got Roger Stone booked for TV for tomorrow night, who wrote the book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy. As soon as they're available, and that could happen any minute, as soon as they're available, we will start going through them, actually using artificial intelligence, believe it or not. Because do you think we have time to go through 80,000 documents? No. But I already asked Grok Deep Search this morning if he or she, does anyone know, is Grok a he or a she? No, they're not really a they, them, are they? Let's pray that's not the case. I'm going to say she. I've asked her if she can go through those 80,000 pages, and she replied back that she was standing by ready to do it. That as soon as they were posted on the National Archives website, she would provide me with bullet points and the key points. So let's see if it really works, because I don't have time to read 80,000 pages. Although I'm very interested in reading as much as I can. Now, what else do we have? Well, we were on the air last night with David Pyne, warning that we might be on our way to war with Iran and that we might want to try to slow things down a little bit. We don't need our military stretched over multiple theaters, if you will. I'm not sure we can actually sustain multiple theaters. So we've got what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. And then we've got what's going on with Gaza and the Middle East and the Red Sea and the Houthis helping Israel. Then we've got the risk of starting something with Iran, which in some ways, I guess we already have if we're striking the Houthis and they're a proxy for Iran. But then you got to worry, as David Pyne said, about spring. And this is a perfect opportunity for China to move in on Taiwan. And we had reports when I went to bed last night, we were getting reports that maybe there was some activity by China around Taiwan. Then we have to worry about China against the Philippines. We also have South Korea. Some of their leaders seem to be full-on communists from what Gordon Chang is telling us, and want to basically follow the leadership of Kim Jong-un in North Korea. The world is on fire. Is anyone taking note of that? And then, of course, we have whatever is going on in Canada and in Mexico that are existential threats to our country, including the drug war with the Mexican cartels. Then we have the TRD, Tren de Aragua, Venezuelan groups here in the country that have already been designated as terrorist organizations. And we have an absolute reprobate judge, federal judge, who thinks that he can dictate to the Trump administration a national security issue. And of course, he's going to, I think, use the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to get rid of more of these illegal invaders, the he being President Donald Trump. And then we have word that President Trump, this caught me by surprise. I don't know how I didn't know about this sooner. Apparently, it was in the news earlier in the month that President Trump was perhaps requesting to have the Declaration of Independence moved to his office. And apparently, that's happened today. From what I'm seeing, and I'd like to see some video